Hi everyone, good afternoon and welcome to our Friday Live session. So hopefully I am at the right place and that you all can see the live okay. So I'm just gonna wait a couple of minutes for you guys to join in. I will be talking a little bit about. Good afternoon, Nat. Thank you so much for coming. Um, yeah, so I hope you guys have had a good week and we're looking forward to the weekend. The weather has been glorious, so I hope that you guys have had a chance to get out and enjoy the warm weather before it gets miserable again next week. So today I thought it would be a good idea to chat a little bit about you know, what may change in our brains as we get a little bit older and wiser, they say. Um, and what are some of the things that we can do? Because you exercise your body every day. So, hi Zita, thank you so much for coming. So we exercise our body, a lot. And so, you want to think about, well, how do we exercise our minds as well, and how to keep it sharp and healthy as we get older, and may notice some forms of decline or another. And at the end of this talk, actually, I will be sharing with you some fun, I guess, some fun skills to do. This is a little bit spontaneous, so it's okay if you guys don't have the material on hand. It's just a piece of paper. If you do have it at home, plain paper is fine. It doesn't need to be pretty or flowery or anything. So if you can grab yourself a piece of paper, we'll be getting to that at the end of the chat. So let's talk a little bit about what happens to our brains really when as we get a little older. So they say that as babies, you were born with a lot of brain cells, but not as much connection between them. So that's why babies, they when they were born, they're basically useless, right? They eat and they sleep and they look cute, and then they cry, eat, sleep, look cute, and repeat, right? And so as they get older, their brains cells start connecting and forming different networks in the brain, and the parts that don't get used kind of die out, right? So think of the aging brain in the same way, is that the connections that we already have will continue to be connected if it is being used actively, whereas the parts that don't get used as much will start going away and being lost. And so what happened on the global scale when you look at the brain is that it's starting to lose size. So it's shrinking in size. So we don't have as much spare brain cells as we would like to have. And so when this happens, it then will make learning, picking up new skills or picking up complex activities just a little bit harder. I'm not saying it's impossible, but let's say if it used to take you, let's say, an hour to let's say, pick up quilting, for example, when you're in your 20s or 30s. It might take you a little bit longer than that. It might take you an hour and a half or 2 hours to learn the same thing as an older adult. But the fact is that that can be done. So it just take you a little bit longer because we don't have as many spare brain cells to play with anymore. And on the other hand, the communication between the brain cells that we already have, as I said, the ones that we keep using will be strengthened and consolidated, but the ones that are not being used will start going away. The third thing that does happen is that, and this happens not only to the brain, but really to every part of our body, is that the blood flow to the brain and other organs start to diminish. So it becomes a little bit less efficient, in terms of getting the blood and the nutrients that we need into the brain where it's being needed most. So, so that does happen as it does to every other part of our body. And lastly, the inflammation that we may have. So, you can think of inflammation as when you have, let's say an infection on your skin and then it becomes all dark and all red and painful. Well, that does happen in the brain as well as the rest of the body as well. The difference is that we can't really tell or we can't really sense the inflammation inside our body as much as we can on our skin. So it does happen. It happens at a really low level that you can't quite sense. But in long term, if this inflammation is not controlled really well or is not being taken care of, then slowly it will also lead to, reduction or death of the brain cells that we have, which is why you may experience decline in your cognition and your brain power, as they say, as you get older. So these are all really theoretical and scientific. So how does that really translate to how you may feel in person in real life? So the first thing that I think a lot of adults may relate to, even me now in my 20s, and I'm in I'm in medical school and I'm supposed to be learning a lot of things. But you find that it's getting just slightly harder every day to memorize new things, and this becomes especially true with timing. So things that are specific time. So for example, doctor's appointments or dates with your friends or birthdays, as well as like little random facts, like recipes or things that you need to get from the grocery store. These are the things that you find that, oh mate, it's getting harder and harder for you to kind of pinpoint or just remember it off the top of your head. And you find that you have to write those down a lot more often. So that's something that you might notice as you're getting older. The second thing, as I said before, is that it might take you just a little bit longer to pick up and become really good at a new skill, as opposed to when you're younger. So it does take you a little bit longer to pick up new skills. However, it will and does happen, but you have to be a little bit more patient and give yourself a little bit more time to pick up these skills. And these would could refer to physical skills, like for example quilting, as I said. Um, if you're doing let's say for example painting. Well, painting is more of a creativity thing, but so quilting, I guess if you're knitting, for example, if you're starting when you're a little bit older, it might take a little bit longer for you to tinker with that. Another thing that you may find will get a lot harder when you're getting older is languages. So if you want to pick up a new language, um, again, I'm not saying that you can't or you shouldn't. You totally should if you feel like you need or you want to pick up a new language. But definitely, it will take you just a little bit longer to pick up a new language if you're choosing to learn that in your 40s or 50s, for example. However, one thing that you may find is that it's actually a lot easier for you now to learn new knowledge that is related to something that you know already. So, for example, let's say if you had been an accountant, let's say, and there's a new tax law that comes out, it would be very easy for you compared to a younger person to pick up on that tax law because you already have a really extensive network in your brain that sets up all of this knowledge. So incorporating new ones that is related to your field of knowledge, um, um, yeah, to incorporate it in. And yeah, definitely when you get older too, you find that yeah, sometimes you just can't quite get the word out, as they say. So it's right there sitting on the tip of your tongue, but you can't say it. That's definitely true as well. Um, but yeah, again, so for example, if you had been let's say a botanist, for example, again, it will be really easy for you to pick up on new plant knowledge, as compared to other things that are not related to what you have already known in your earlier life. And one last thing is just general, maybe you wake up and you feel a little more tired than normal, or you would feel a little bit just, you get like this brain fog throughout the day, that you find that you can't think as well as you as you'd like you find like there might just be like a veil of confusion, just slight, that you can just perceive it as you're going through your day. So this is the kind of thing that will happen and you might feel as you're getting a little bit older and wiser. So what are the kinds of things that you may want to do in order to, I guess, slow down this process and still keep your brain healthy as we're heading into um, our later years? So the first thing is that you should really, really keep on top of your health screening and appointments with your doctor. Um, so if you're seeing a doc, you should see a doctor regularly. If you have any kinds of chronic diseases or illnesses, for example, if you have hypertension, you would really like to keep your blood pressure in check. If you have diabetes, you would really, really want to keep um, the, your blood sugar intake, for example, your blood sugar. If you have a little bit of anxiety, then you should either look into getting therapeutic help from a psychologist, or learn some techniques that you can use to manage your anxiety. Um, if you're and definitely if you're smoking, or if you find yourself smoking even just one cigarette a day or a week, you should really, really stop. There's no such thing as a healthy amount of of cigarette smoke. So if you're smoking, definitely stop. I cannot stress that enough, and I tell this to everyone I come across. Um, Healthy, but anything more than that, you should consider cutting back. Um, And this also links to getting enough sleep. Now, sleep is a very contentious topic because every person needs a different amount of sleep a day, and there's really no, I guess there is a general recommendation of between 7 to 9 hours, right? But a lot of people may find that, well, they're doing fine with less, or they're doing fine with more. But the point is that the appropriate amount of sleep for everyone is how much you need to sleep in order to feel good the next day. So an easy way to do this, and especially now that we're heading into the weekend, or during COVID time where you don't have to stick to early mornings and late nights as much, is to just go to sleep at a reasonable hour, let's before 12 a.m. for example, and just let yourself sleep naturally and wake up naturally without an alarm, and see when it is that your brain automatically wakes up in the morning and you feel refreshed from that sleep. So that's usually the appropriate amount of sleep that you may need. And again, for most people it falls between 7 and 9 hours. If you're finding yourself needing a lot more sleep, though, let's say you find yourself needing 10 to 12 hours of sleep, that may not be a healthy thing, because if you find yourself needing that much sleep, there may be something happening inside your sleep. For example, you may stop breathing in your sleep and you keep waking up without even knowing, and that may be interfering with your sleep during the night, and that's why you need to make up for it by sleeping a lot longer. So if your natural sleep cycle is between 7 and 9, that's great. If it's a little bit less than 7, that's okay too, because they found that older people actually don't need to sleep as much. But if it's significantly more than 9, so it's 10, 12 hours, that would be a little bit of a concerning sign that maybe the sleep that you're having in the night is not as good as it should be. And that's something that you should definitely bring up with your doctor. But definitely get enough sleep and stop smoking, which would be the two biggest thing that I would advocate. The third thing, I mean, it should be very intuitive as well, is eating healthy foods. So we talked a little bit about this in my diabetes discussion as well. But obviously, if you can, you know, increase your fiber intake, if you eat a lot of fruits and vegetables, that would be great. If you incorporate those into your diet, try not to substitute fruits with juices though, because juices, as they found, is actually not as good for you because it just it's really just sugar water with lots of vitamins. But the fact is that there's a lot of sugar in it as well. Whereas if you eat whole fruits, for example, then you're eating the sugar, but you're also eating a lot of fiber that will then help your health. But if you're just drinking apple juice, that's really just drinking a lot of sugar, and it doesn't because apple juice doesn't have the same amount of fiber. It doesn't fill you up the same way that an apple would. So you find yourself drinking a lot more um, apple juice as well compared to eating the apples. So again, whole fruits and whole vegetables are great. Meat, for example, is not something that you should be scared of, but you should try to eat lean meat if you can, and try to find fish, for example, because fish gives you the same amount of protein as meat, but the fats that you get from fish are the healthier fats. So you hear your doctor say, "Oh, you have healthy fats." So those are the kinds that come from fish and not so much from animals on lands, unfortunately. Um, Try to reduce sugar and salt. Um, and again, I mean, for salt, for example, it's okay if you don't have high blood pressure, then you can, eat the salt the way that you normally do. But if you do have high blood pressure, as your doctor might tell you, then it would be a lot better if you can, lower your salt intake. And sugar is, I always try to discourage sugar as much as I can. It's okay to eat a piece of baked goods once in a while, but if you're finding yourself eating a cake every other week, for example, that it may be time for us to try to slow down on that intake. um, and this is another thing too when it comes to cooking or baking, is that if you find the time, it will be a lot better for you to make things yourself, because what you find is that if you buy prepared of processed food from the supermarket, there's a lot of sugar hidden in there. If you make a cake compared to the cookies or the cake that you buy from the supermarket, you find that the sugar that they have is a lot more than what you may find when you do them yourself. So try to eat whole foods. What about using Splenda and stevia? Oh yeah, that is actually a great option. I do that too. I use Splenda. I don't find that stevia gives me the same sweetness as sugar does, but I use Splenda for my coffee, for my dessert. If I do make them, that is a great option for sure. It would be wise to just mention this quickly to your doctor, because some people may have some sensitivity to those sweeteners. But if you find yourself um, tolerating these things well, then I would really, really encourage you to switch to that if you can. But again, with that said, if you're consuming a lot of soda, for example, even if it's the non-sugar type, it doesn't make it healthy either, right? Because sugar is only one bad thing when it comes to processed food. So if they if they switch out the sugar, they put in the Splenda or stevia to make it healthy, then what about all the other stuff, right? All the fats and all the salt and all the chemicals that may be present in processed food. So yes, it is a better option if you really, really crave a Coke or a lemonade. It will be a lot better to go for a non-sugar sweetened lemonade or soda compared to a sugar one. But again, don't go overboard with either, because you're still taking in all the other things that are not that good for your body. But yes, it's a great option. And one thing, and I kind of touch on this too with my recipe for tofu, is that one way to really up your fiber intake is to eat foods that are high in both proteins and fiber. For example, tofu is one of them. You can also find, meat substitutes. So if you find that can get creative with those, that would be great. Tempeh or seitan is something that you can eat, or one of those Beyond Meat burgers are good options as well if you're craving a burger, because again, it incorporates a lot of fiber alongside the protein that your body really really needs. The next thing is obviously exercise. Um, a lot of my colleagues, especially Ivan, has already I guess got you guys moving. But exercise is really important for all sorts of different reasons, including obviously brain health. Because what it does, remember what I said before, when we get a little bit older and your blood just doesn't travel to your brain as much as well as it's used to. One way to increase that blood flow is actually to get up and get moving, because then your body is becoming a lot more efficient in pumping that blood around. And one form of exercise that is extremely I guess useful is our aerobic exercises. So, for example, if you enjoy walking outside, if you have a pet, for example, dogs, and you walk with them, those are great exercises, because what you find again is that when you do those exercises, is that your heart pumps a little bit faster, and that's a good thing. Yeah. So if you're walking, if you're running, if you're doing a little bit of aerobic exercise, I know they have a lot of different online classes nowadays. Those are really really good for your heart health, but also for your brain health. Things that get your heart pumping faster. And there are a lot of free classes now, including the ones that my classmates are throwing for you guys. But join a class, an online class, or a group of friends if you find that you need the motivation. But definitely engage yourself in these activities as much as you can, and that way you can keep your blood pumping throughout your body, but also to your brain, and keep those brain cells happy. um, and then let me flip through my notes. One thing that, yep, walking definitely works, but there's a you want to walk at a pace that that is just above your normal walking pace, so that your heart can start getting into the work, right? If you're walking too slowly, it doesn't make as much of a good difference. But if you walk a little bit more briskly, then that's a good thing. One other thing is obviously to stay socially connected. Um, so obviously, what we're doing right now is staying socially connected, right? And it's a great thing. And obviously, right now it's very hard for us to be in person with each other, but definitely try to stay close to your friends, to your family, and talk to them regularly. Because by staying socially connected, what you're doing is that you're actually activating little networks, little social networks in your brain to tell yourself, oh yes, these are all good connections that you're having. And it's not the same thing, mind you. Social connection is not the same thing as going on Facebook and scroll through your screen for 2 hours. That's definitely not the same thing. Scrolling through social media is not a form of social connection. Social connection is if you're talking to someone, if you're being actively engaged, as we're doing now. I'm talking to you guys, and you guys are asking me questions. These are the forms of social connection that is very very good for our brain, because it releases all sorts of hormones and neurotransmitter, as they say, the chemicals in your brain that makes your brain a little bit happier. um, and obviously, I mean, I'm sure you guys have had your fair share of stress, and you guys have had lots of different strategies to deal with your stress level. But and again, different volunteers and my classmates and myself have given you a lot of different techniques to manage your stress. So you can do yoga, you can do exercise if that's your thing. You can do my breathing exercise or meditation. um, you can do gardening, for example, if that's your thing. Any kinds of exercises or practices that get your body moving as well as relaxes you. So, if some people find that cooking or cleaning the house helps with their stress, so that's something that you can do as well, right? Things that help you reduce the stress level, because if you reduce your stress level, you find that the inflammation in your body also goes down. Okay. And then one last thing, and this will be, I guess, a great introduction to what the fun activity that I'll be showing you guys, is to keep your mind active. So this, involves a lot of different things, and different people have different ways of approaching this. But a few different ways is that, if you already have some certain skills that you may have, so for example, if you bake or if you cook, then it will be really good to start, to keep doing those things and to improve upon them. So for example, learn a new recipe, and try to do that. Dancing to a good song. Yep, perfect. I like dancing and singing to songs as well. And that also gets your body moving, which is another plus. But again, doing and improving on your current skills is a great way to start. Like, if I don't know why I keep bringing up accountant, I guess because it's tax season and that's all I'm thinking about. But if you had been a tax or an accountant in your professional life, and now you're kind of winding down, it will be a good thing if you offer to do taxes for your family, because what it does, that it actually reinforces the skill that you already have, and it keeps your mind thinking and active. Or if you used to be a language teacher or a math teacher, it will be really good for you to just involve yourself in teaching that class, or taking a class for it. So there are a lot of continuing education programs now at universities for older adults. Just something that you guys, that for them to do, and to come in a school environment, and I guess learn new things. So take a class or teach a class, for example, if you're really good at something, is also a good way to keep your brain active. And next up is, be creative. So again, Zeta, I really identify with that. So, sing or dance or do painting, for example. Those are all great creative outlets. And what it does is that when you exercise the creative, I guess, the creative parts of your brain, it activates and it helps the other parts as well stay a little bit healthier. So those are all great things you want to. And gardening is something that is, I don't have the space or the time to garden right now, but honestly, when I get older, that's something I really, really want to do, because it involves so many different exercises, right? You get out, you get your body moving, you're doing exercises with your shoveling, but then you're also doing the thinking part, right? You have to diagnose, just like a doctor would, right? Of what's going on with your garden. Are the plants looking healthy? What should I do next? How do I counteract this pest that has been infesting my garden? So these are all good aspects of gardening, because it involves so many different um, areas of your body. Um, yep, so many great ideas. Yep. and and it's one thing that I would really encourage is, do things that involve many senses. So I mentioned, language learning before. That's a really good one, because it's actually involving, you're speaking, you're listening, you're reading, and also language. Language is actually a really special brain activity, because there's a special part in our brain that takes care of language. So if you want to, you can just pick up a new language, Vietnamese, for example, which I speak. Um, but if you like, you can pick up a new language, because then it will actually exercise your brain. It uses a lot of different senses. Again, using different senses is a good thing. So that actually brings me to our conclusion, and I'll be showing you a little bit of an origami skill. So again, origami, I used to really, I, how do I say that? I used to be really into origami as a kid. And I thought that I would share this with you guys, because this is something that will be, it's really low cost, but high rewards, because you get really, really pretty artwork at the end. um, and again, it will involve a lot of senses. You have to listen to what I'm saying, you need to see what I'm saying, and you need to use your hands. So when you engage lots of senses, that's also a good thing. So today, I guess I think of showing you how to make pretty lilies out of paper. So I have two here already, yellow and blue, and I'll be showing you how to make one. So let me just move my camera, and hopefully I'll be able to show you um, how to. So let me see how I can do this. Um, hmm, Let me move my laptop here. So let me see. Because I think what I might have to do. Okay. That works. We shall see. Piece of paper here. It looks rectangular here, but it looks actually rectangular. So make sure you have a rectangular piece of paper, and you can follow along. So the first thing that we need to do is to get to a square. And the quickest way to get to a square, and the most elegant way, is just fold the short edge of your paper with the longer edge of the paper here. Try to get as close to the perfect edge as you can. Basically, of the triangle. And what you have left in the end here, so basically this triangle is basically half the square. And then what you'll do next is cut off this little piece, this little flap here of excess paper. So I'm just going to quickly do that before we return the square. So you can use different ways. You can definitely use scissors, but what I use to do is that I'll just fold it up against this triangle here. Sharpen the crease and then I'll just slowly tear it up. But I would encourage you to use a pair of scissors because it's a lot more and a lot less risky. Okay, but once you tear out that excess flap of paper, you find yourself with a perfect square. Okay, so once you have that perfect square, you just fold it back into the rectangle as you see here, and then you will fold that. You will fold that in half along the. You fold it along the crease here. Okay, not the edge. So you fold it along the crease here into half. Okay, so let me just quickly show you that again. So we have a square, we fold that in half into this, and then we fold that one in half again. Alright. So now that we have that, we open the triangle again. We're going to fold the two sides into the middle crease that we just created. And again, feel free to rewatch this video and follow along if you'd like later on as well. So we're going to fold the two sides into the midline. Okay, so now we have three creases. You usually have three creases. One in the middle and two on the Okay, next up, we're going to try to fold. So basically we're going to lift up the corner middle here and fold the edges and tuck it into the midline that we just created here. So again, what I just did there. So again, we have our triangle with 3 creases, 1 in the middle, 2 on the sides. So then what you do is that you lift up this side along the crease, and you bring it to the other side and bring the edge here into the midline. Okay? And we tuck it into the core and make sure that all the edges are touching so that we have a really sharp and symmetrical. So then we repeat on the other side. Same thing. So what we do is that we lift this up and we fold it. We fold the edge of the triangle into the midline, and then we turn it around to tuck it into the core. Right now you can see that we have ourselves a little square again, because all the edges have been tucked in. Okay? So now let's turn. So we're going to say now we have basically 4 little sides. If you take it and look at it directly like this, right? So now we're going to work on each side separately. So let's take this side. So let's say if we take this little flat side. So again, put your finger inside. This is the I guess this is the, how do you say, it's like a little horn, a little back of our star. So what you do is that you would press it into the core of the midline right here that you can see. You're going to push it in, and again, try to do this as symmetrically as you can. So we're going to push it in. So again, the little back side here, we're going to push it into the midline and line it up as straight as you can. And once you line it up, then you will push on the sides here to flatten it. Again, so you have it like this. You will fold the midline here, or this back, as I say, to the midline. And once you fold it into the midline, you will flatten the sides. Okay? Once we get there, so this is 1, and we're just going to repeat this for all the 4 sides that we have. So again, the spine. Oh yes, the spine here. You will push it to the midline, to the middle here, as symmetrically as you can, and then you will flatten the sides. We have 2 more to go. Again, the spine here. You're going to push the spine to the midline and flatten the edges on the side. Last one. Again, the spine here. You're going to push it into the midline and flatten the sides. So once you're done with your 4 sides, you should have yourself a little, I guess, okay? With also alternating, I guess I'm going to call this the rough side because it has a little area here and then the smooth side. So we should have alternating rough, smooth, rough, oops, smooth, rough, smooth. Okay? So now we're going to get started at one of the rough side. So this is a little complicated, and hopefully I will try to explain to you as well as I can. So you see this little single edge of paper here. What I want you to do is that you actually want to fold this into the midline here. So again, so just try to do this as close as you can. It's a little challenging, but it's definitely possible. So try to fold the edge of the paper the entire size of the circle, of the side here into the middle. Okay, so you see, I basically tucked the entire side into the middle. Okay, so then let's repeat on this side. So if you have a little flap of paper here, this is how it looks before you fold it in. This little flap here. You will fold it into the midline right here. Okay? So let's fold it in and try to get as sharp and as close as you can. Okay, as you can see here. And then if you extend it all the way to the other side, then you will see that you need to tuck the entire side of the paper basically like this, and then tuck it all the way to the midline. And again, you want everything to look symmetrical, and you want them to meet in the midline in the middle. Okay? So once you have that, you fold this little horn up because this will give us the I forget what that part is called. It's not the petal, but I guess it's the core of the flower. Okay? So we have that done. So now we're going to move on to we have 4 more of these steps to do. Okay? So again, we'll turn on the rough side. We'll work on the rough side. Okay? So this rough side here, we're going to bring this edge into the middle. Okay? Again, as close as you possibly can. And then we repeat on the flap on the other side, all the way to the midline. All the way, and if you've been following correctly, the midline should have a crease that you can see and you can fold your paper into already. Okay? And then we repeat on the other side as well. Again, the edge to the middle, follow by the other side. And again, we have ourselves another petal, this little core, where I wish I knew what it's called. If you know what the middle part of the flower is called, let me know. We have 2 more of those to do. This one will do a little bit quicker because hopefully you would have followed and you understood what to do down there. So again, one side, the other side. Hold it all the way in the middle. And one last rough side. Okay, so basically you should have 4 rough sides to work with and tuck in. Alright, so now that we're done with the rough sides and we have our beautiful petals and core here, we're gonna turn our attention to the smooth side. The smooth side is the one that doesn't have any creases or any splitting. What you want to do with the smooth side, and with the smooth side, it's important to see that there's one part, there's one side that does flip over. So this is the petal. But there's also the side at the root of the flower here that doesn't open. So we want to fold the root, or we want to fold the root end again into the midline. So it used to be like this, the smooth side. You want to fold this edge here into the midline. Okay? Same thing on this side. Okay? And then we're going to turn around to look for another smooth side here. Again, the petal is on this end, so we're going to fold on the other end. Fold the outer edge into the midline. Into the midline. Then into the midline. Oops, sorry. Into the midline. And then a last smooth part. Into the midline. Then into the midline. Alright? So now we're ready to assemble our flower. So again, beginning with the smooth part that you just finished, we're going to fold the petal down. Here we're going to fold the petal down. And if you've done everything correctly, the petal should fold directly down into the midline like that. Okay? I'm going to fold the petal down and then we're going to turn. So we're at the smooth side where the petal comes down. We're going to fold the petal down here as well. Alright? Again, another petal. You should have 4 petals in total. And fold it all the way down. And again, if you have followed the step correctly, it should come all the way down symmetrically to the middle. One last petal. Alright. There we go. So then, now that you fold it all down, all of the petal, you can now open your folder up. So bring the petal up. And you can have yourself, first of all, this is a straight lily. Okay? So let me just turn my camera around so I can finish assembling this lily with you guys. So the last step that you have to do once you have this straight lily is to curl the petal. I should get myself a pen, but if you have a pen, it would be great to just curl up the petal with a pen like that. But this doesn't look nearly as nice because let me quickly go get a pen. I'll be right back. Okay, so I have a pen here, so I'm just going to curl the petal with the pen quite tightly, and then you can release it a little to make it look really natural. And again, we can just curl it with a pen. Just release and make it look really natural. Thank you. So yeah, I know that I might not be the best instructor of origami, but you know, it's a good start, and you can definitely look for more shapes and figures to do in origami. Origami is a really, really interesting and intricate art from Japan. So I would really encourage you to get into this. You know, if you're looking for a new, I guess, low cost but high reward skill to pick up. Again, it's a great way to keep your eyes and your hands and your ears involved as you're doing this, and it will definitely keep your brain healthy and young. So those are lilies, paper lilies that we have created. So that's just one skill that you can pick up to keep your mind young, healthy, and sharp, among other things that we have discussed today. So I hope you guys have enjoyed the session. And I hope you guys will have a great weekend coming ahead. I won't be seeing you next week, but the week after I'll be back. So I hope you guys a great weekend and a great week ahead. And yeah, I'll be seeing you in 2 weeks' time. Bye for now.